Before we start the topic, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Lesson 2, Listening. Introduction. When we talk about communication, people have the tendency to only focus on the talking part. However, talking is just a small part of communication. It's not even the greatest component of communication. Effective communication entails active listening and understanding. However, the reality is that people pay less attention to listening and tend to focus on speaking. This lesson will be focusing on developing your active listening skills in order to make you better communicators. Furthermore, this lesson would help you in knowing why listening is important to becoming effective communicators. Topic 1: Hearing versus listening. Is there a difference between hearing and listening? Hearing is referred to as the physiological process that happens when the brain distinguishes sound waves. Meanwhile, listening refers to the process of receiving, attending to, making meaning, and responding to messages. Hearing is the process, listening is when you intentionally hear and try to understand the message. In the workplace, you are expected to not just hear, but to listen. Why is it important to listen? Listening is a very important skill because the way you listen affects your effectivity and efficiency in your job. Instead of talking more, we should practice listening more in the workplace. Active listening lets you hear what was delivered verbally, as well non-verbally. Listening is important especially in getting instructions. Active listening is not just hearing, but also understanding the meaning behind the message. Active listening entails a lot of focusing because it requires the listener to repeat in his/her own mind what the speaker is saying. Topic 2: Stages of the listening process. Receiving, listening to both verbal and nonverbal messages. Understanding, processing and extracting meaning. Evaluating, balancing options, deciphering whether what you heard is the truth, or whether it is important or not. Remembering, transfer from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. Responding, giving of feedback. Topic 3: Barriers to listening. There are two main types of barriers to listening: external and internal obstacles. Take note of these challenges, so you could identify these issues and hopefully overcome them to listen better in the workplace. External message overload. This occurs when there is an overwhelming amount of message. When there are too many messages, it makes it harder to focus on one message. It can also happen when you communicate with using two channels at a time. For example, talking on the phone while writing an email. Message complexity. When a job gets harder, of course the descriptions necessary to do the job gets more complicated. Thus, there will be times that it would be harder to follow. Message complexity refers to situations where a message is too complicated to understand. Environmental distractions. Finally, the surroundings can also affect listening. When the environment is noisy, it could be harder to listen. Internal preoccupation. When there are many thoughts or concerns in your head, it would be quite harder to listen to someone talk. Prejudgments. Initial judgment of a person or a situation also makes it harder to listen. When you already have a preconceived idea about someone or your coworker, you might assume that it is no longer necessary to listen to his or her ideas. Lack of effort. Because active listening requires active effort, some are unable or unwilling to intentionally listen. Difficulty in adjusting to communication style. Different people communicate differently. Thus, there are some people who are easier to understand, and some will be quite challenging. Whatever the issue you face when it comes to listening, active listening and understanding entails conscious effort. You really need to try in attending, understanding, remembering, evaluating, and responding to a message in order to show that you are an effective listener. Attentive listeners will try to remove environmental distractions such as televisions, phones, or laptops when talking to someone. Topic 4: Active listening strategies. Strategies to develop active listening skills. Here are some strategies that can aid you in every step of the listening process. 1. Attending, intentionally understanding by focusing on the speaker and the message. Be physically, mentally, and emotionally prepared to listen to the other speaker. Remove physical or mental distractions, i.e. noise, distracting thoughts, etc. Defer judgment and hear the speaker out. Discover what learning you can take home from the speaker. 2. Understanding, accurately representing the message. Identify the main idea and major points of the message. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Summarize your understanding. Observe nonverbal cues. 3. Remembering, ability to retain and recall information. Repeat the message to confirm understanding. Make use of mnemonic devices. This tool associates special words or statements with longer information. Take notes. You can only remember 20 to 30% of what you hear. Taking down notes is very important, especially when you want to remember details, or when you are receiving instructions. 4. Evaluating, determining whether the message is trustworthy by critically analyzing it. Here are some important questions you can ask when evaluating a message. Asking these questions would help you in evaluating whether you should accept the message as true. What are the facts that support the statement? Is the information connected to the main idea? Are there contradictions to the statement? Next video will be Lesson 3, Speaking. Before we say goodbye, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button.